First of all, I'm very grateful to CBAC and the entire administration of CBAC to giving me this forum. The topic of juvenile offender is actually very close to my heart, and I'll give you the reason why I feel very closely for the juvenile offenders is because, and I would not be wrong in saying that nobody in the uh, legal practice and legal fraternity is actually thinking about this demographic. This is not the priority of the government. This is not the priority of the justice system. This is not the priority of the law enforcement agencies and not even the social welfare sectors that we have. We talk about death penalty. We talk about women in the prison. We talk about the problems of people who are confined. We talk about prisoners who are on death row. But we are not talking about juveniles who have become part of the legal system, and without any help from the government, from the state, and from the concerned NGOs, they reoffend and then they keep on becoming part of the system and they turn to be a hardened criminal or someone जिसके बारे में हम ये कहते हैं कि ये होपलेस शख्स है, इससे आप किसी चीज़ की उम्मीद नहीं कर सकते. तो मैंने अपनी प्रैक्टिस एज अ क्रिमिनल लॉयर शुरू की थी 2014 में, एंड आई स्टार्टेड वर्किंग विद मिस्टर इलियास खान. Um, a lesser known fact about Mr. Ilyas Khan, a lot of people who have practiced under law or have known the justice system, they are aware of his name. He's a very brilliant criminal lawyer, one of the finest criminal lawyers in Pakistan. But a very lesser known fact about Mr. Ilyas Khan is that he was the first author on juvenile laws in Pakistan. He was the first published author, and anyone in the legal fraternity who has ever wrote a book on the problems of juvenile offenders. When I started working with Mr. Ilyas Khan, a lot of cases that we used to get in the law firm were pertaining to juveniles because of his passion. And I used to interact with a lot of juvenile offenders. And every single time I used to feel if some little support they can get, we can break the cycle of, repeating of the crime. And then I become very interested in the subject. I pursued my master's dissertation in this topic, and I happened to go to the juvenile prison. And I met with 13-year-old, 14-year-old, 15-year-old, 16-year-old committing variety of offenses. Some are not even offenses; they're just social wrongs, and they've been in jail for 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, and they've lost their youth. And they came out, and I met them again for commission of even more serious offense. And then I've represented a couple as an adult prisoner because they have become habitual offenders. So when I wrote about this topic, and this is also a topic I am doing I'm MPhil dissertation on, I've realized one thing, that Pakistan is a very barbaric judicial system when we talk about juvenile offenders. So I've used the word juveniles a lot of time. What does it mean in law? How does it go? Okay. So the term juvenile is a legal term, and Section 2H of the Juvenile Justice System Act 2018 defines juvenile as a child who may be dealt with for an offense in a manner which is different from an adult, which means that the legal system deals with the juvenile offender differently. It is not going to be the same treatment as an adult prisoner who will receive. Juvenile offender, on the other hand, is defined as a child who is alleged to have committed or has found to have committed an offense. So juvenile is different, but there is a possibility that a juvenile may offend, and that is why the system will deal with that particular person differently. A more lucid definition of child and juvenile is defined under Section 2B, which says a person who has not attained the age of 18 years. And the 2000 ordinance says a person who at the time of commission of an offense has not attained the age of 18 years. In 2000, we have come up with this definition that someone, if they have not attained the age of 18 years, they will be considered a child in the justice system. And because they're considered as a child, their criminal capacity is diminished. And that is why they will be treated differently. They will be treated with leniency. And then the term juvenile was introduced for those particular children. It would be very interesting for you to know the criminal liability in Pakistan. Till 2016, a 10-year-old had a full-fledged criminal liability. Pakistan is one of the few countries where a 10-year-old could get maximum sentence. By maximum, I means life imprisonment. And they would not only get death penalty, because we have signed this UNHCR convention which says that we will not give death penalty to anyone who's under the age of 18. So it is not the law which is prohibiting death penalty for a 10-year-old. It was a UN treaty which was prohibiting Pakistan to execute someone who was 10-year-old. It took us from the beginning of 1947 to 2016, we realized that 10 years is actually quite young. So then we introduced that anyone who's at the age of 13 will have complete criminal liability. Now, here comes the contrast of law. In 1979, when Mr. Ziaul Haq came to power and he introduced Hudud ordinances, Hudud ordinance damaged the criminal justice system and the fabric of the criminal justice system to the great extent. But one of the disservices that they have done was towards juvenile and women. The very problematic situation with Hudud ordinance was that it was treating a 16-year-old as an adult, regardless of the law or the legal protection, which was saying that if someone is under the age of 18, they will not be treated as an adult. The Hudud ordinance defined adult as a person who has not if a man is someone who has not attained the age of 18, and a female who has not attained the age of 16 or is not a pubert. So if they have not attained puberty and they are 16, they are an adult. But if they are 10, 11, 12, or have attained the puberty, they are automatically an adult. So they will come out of that special provision which protects juveniles or protects children from harsher penalties. They will be exposed to harsher criminal penalties. Let me tell you what were the penalties under the Hudud ordinance. The penalties were whipping, minimum 30 strips of whipping. That was the minimum sentence. The penalties were stoning to death. The penalties was cutting of hand, cutting of foot. The penalty was remaining behind the bar for the remainder of their life. And there are cases, reported judgments, where 13-year-old was stoned to death. A blind 13-year-old was stoned to death, and PTV televised it live, and everyone bought tickets and watched it because she was allegedly accused of zina bil raza. So this is the reality of the justice system that we talk about, and we say that we are living in the modern times, and this disservice of the Hudud ordinance is still in existence. So if the case falls under the Hudud ordinances, which are 4 offenses: zina, theft, drinking, and false allegation of qazf, or false allegation of having illicit relationship with an individual, all these 4 offenses will automatically fall under the Hudud ordinances. And if someone is exposed under the Hudud ordinance, regardless of the age, they will be treated as an adult. Interesting fact is Norway is one of the most modern countries when it comes to juvenile justice system. The age of criminal liability starts from age of 15, where they start determining criminal liability, whether this person should even be tried for a criminal offense or not. In Pakistan, at the age of 15, I've handled at least 50 cases in my experience where life sentences were awarded to 15 years old for commission of different offenses under the Pakistan Penal Code. Now, we're talking about so I have actually left some time for questions in the end. Okay. So we're talking about reoffending. Recidivism is the actual term, or the accurate terminology under the criminology academics. What does recidivism or reoffending means? This is an academic definition which says juvenile recidivism refers to relapse into delinquent or criminal behavior by a minor who has previously come into contact with the juvenile justice system, typically measured by rearrest, reconviction, or re-entry into the custodial care within the redefined period following release or intervention. However, in the Pakistani context, we don't know what recidivism is because we don't have a census. We don't have a data. We don't have a government data or census which can actually tell us how many of the juveniles have actually relapsed, how many have reoffended. So in the Pakistani context, when researchers research on recidivism, what they focus on is primarily the lack of rehabilitation, reintegration, and prevention from future reoffending, because we don't have a structured psychological support, community-based intervention, and structured off-care contributions to break the cycle. We only emphasize on the facts that what can we do while they're incarcerated, how can we prevent their release so they remain in jail for the remainder of their conviction rather than fixing their behavior. In the Pakistani context, this is what reoffending means. So if you don't let them go out of prison, they will not reoffend. यानी कि आप उनको डब्बे में बंद करके रखें, ना वो बाहर निकलेंगे ना वो भागेंगे। तो जब वो भागेंगे ही नहीं और वो डब्बे में बंद होंगे, तो वो डब्बे में जो उनका हशर होता है वो उनका हशर होता रहे। ये हमारी अप्रोच है। बचपन में एक मैंने कहावत पढ़ी थी कि कबूतर की एक साइकोलॉजी होती है कि वो जब खतरा देखता है तो वो मिट्टी में अपना मुंह डाल देता है और बोलता है कि क्योंकि मुझे नहीं दिख रहा डेंजर, तो डेंजर नहीं है। तो हमारा जस्टिस सिस्टम भी वैसा ही है कि हमें लगता है कि डेंजर नहीं है, लेकिन इट्स अ टिकिंग टाइम बॉम्ब। जिस सिस्टम के अंदर जुवेनाइल ऑफेंडर्स रह रहे हैं, इट इज गोइंग टू एक्सप्लोड एंड वी विल हैव अ वेरी सीरियस relapse in the juvenile offenders. Now, how does absence of census, because in the entire world it is a very simple system. If someone goes into the system, it is recorded. If someone comes out of the system, it is recorded. So they know if someone has re-entered the system. We don't have a census. So what we do is, the way we record someone has reoffended is by way of lodgement of FIR. If an FIR is lodged against an individual, and the data is before the police, so that means that he has reoffended. If the person is acquitted or the case has not been proven and he has been released subsequently as an innocent person, the FIR is still there. So he will always be considered as an offender, because every single time, whenever that person will go for getting a certificate or applying for a student visa or going for a scholarship, the offense will always be there because the police will never update it as discharge or acquitted case. It will always be a criminal offense against that person. So for instance, I can give you a very interesting example. एक शख्स ने 13 साल की उम्र में शॉपलिफ्टिंग की। पुलिस वाले उसको पकड़ के लेकर गए और एक कच्ची एफआईआर, हम इसको कहते हैं, जो कोर्ट नहीं जाती, रजिस्टर हुई, चीजें वापस मिल गई, केस बंद हो गया। लेकिन चूंकि वो पुलिस के रजिस्टर के अंदर आया है, वो पुलिस के रजिस्टर में रहेगा। अब वही शख्स 17 साल की उम्र में अगर किसी से बाहर झगड़ा करता है और वो दोबारा थाने जाता है, तो उसके खिलाफ एक एफआईआर मौजूद है, तो वो रिपीट ऑफेंडर है। चूंकि वो रिपीट ऑफेंडर है, अब उसको बेल नहीं मिलेगी, अब उसको पेरोल प्रोबेशन नहीं मिलेगा, क्योंकि वो रिपीट ऑफेंडर है। So regardless of the nature of the incident, we think in this justice system that reoffending is basically existence of FIR rather than a patterned criminal behavior, which is the academic definition of recidivism and reoffending. So we have never researched on this aspect of law. This is the current data of 2025. This is only with regards to the juvenile inmates. This data does not include individuals who have attained the age of 18 and has been transferred to adult prison, and it does not include the data of female juvenile offenders. So if a female is arrested, they booked her as an adult because they don't have female prisons for juvenile. So she, from the very first day, is trialed as an adult prisoner. So she does not get any remedies under the law which are there for a juvenile. Why? Because the government does not have a building for a female juvenile offender, so she's never listed. I have personally met 18 juvenile offenders who are currently confined in women prison with adult prisoners, and they are from the age of 15 to 17. There are 18 in number. This is a very interesting data. There are convicts who are 11. 11 means they're under the age of 18. Condemned prisoner death row, the figure is 0. This is an incorrect figure because a lot of them get death penalty when they're under the age of 18, but they're transferred to the death row um, station, and that is why they are not listed here. That is a different census. Under trial prisoners are 255 and a total number is 277. This is only Karachi, by the way. This is not entire Pakistan. This is Karachi. What if I tell you the capacity of the Youthful Industrial School juvenile prison is only for 60 inmates? They can only confine 60 inmates. 60 लोगों को रखने की जगह है उनके पास, उसमें उन्होंने 277 रखे हुए हैं। तो रिहैबिलिटेशन कहाँ से होगी? वन ऑन वन केयर कहाँ से होगी? री इंटीग्रेशन कहाँ से होगी? ये फिगर डबल से भी ज्यादा है। जहां 60 लोग रखने की जगह है, वहां 277 लोगों को कन्फाइन किया हुआ है। आई हैव टू स्टोरीज। There's a story of Ahmad and there's a story of Umar. They're not their real names. I've changed their names for confidentiality. Pakistan has two laws with regards to the juvenile justice system. The first was in the year 2000, which was then repealed, and in 2018, we had a different act, which is more sort of, which is more nurturing in a way, and it is more in lines with the UN United Nations Convention of Rights of Child. So the first story is of Umar. Sorry, Ahmed. Ahmed was a 13-year-old boy, and he used to work इन अ टी स्टॉल। जो इलाकों में छोटे छोटे चाय के जो होटल्स होते हैं, वहां पे वो काम करता था। ही कम्स फ्रॉम एन अबैंडन फैमिली। वहाँ काम करता था, चाय दुकानों पे जो गाड़ियां रुकती थी उनको चाय देता था। अहमद was arrested when he was 13-year-old for theft, and he was then presented before a court. The trial proceeded and he got 3 years of sentence. He went to jail. He was not given any probation or anything. He stayed in the remand room, and then when he was turned 15 years old, he was transferred to the Youthful Offender Industrial School. I represented Ahmed when he was 17 years old in a different FIR. He came out of prison and then he re-offended. He committed a armed robbery with a group of inmates who he met in the Youthful Offender Industrial School, and he got arrested, and I represented him. While I was dealing with this case, this FIR surfaced, and I saw that he was already imprisoned, so the judge will automatically not give him bail, and he will not be liable for probation and parole because he's a serial offender. So I started digging up more about the case so that I can find out what was the case. Do you know what Ahmed stole when he was 13? Any guesses? He stole a pair of sunglasses and headphones from a car. A pair of sunglasses and headphones. And he was in jail for 3 years for that. I personally met Ahmed. He was one of the funniest people I've ever met. 17-year-old, full of life, witty. I used to tell him that, you should quit the life of crime and become a stand-up comedian. And he said very candidly, मेरे साथ जो सिस्टम ने किया है वो वापस तो मैं करूंगा. Umar. Umar was arrested in the year 2003 for a murder case. He was 16 at the time of his arrest. He was trialed under ATC court and he received death penalty. Death penalty was prohibited to juvenile offenders at that time. He still got death penalty. He remained on death row till 2019. In 2016, Supreme Court picked up this case and Supreme Court decided that all of those offenders, it was a generic PIL, and the Supreme Court decided that all of those offenders who were juveniles and got death penalties, they can retry on the question of their juvenility, and the trial court will reassess their age, and if any benefit can be given to them, that benefit should be given to them. A lot of back and forth happened. We did a lot of running around in this case, and finally, in the year 2022, he was released. He was 35 when he was released. He was not acquitted, but his death sentence was commuted to life imprisonment. He was 35 when he came out of the prison, and the first thing that he asked me, I asked him, like, can I do something for you? And he said, can you find out where my family is? Because I don't know where they are. The last time I met with them, I was in prison and I don't know where to go. So, a boy who was 16-year-old coming out of prison after 17 years of incarceration at the age of 35, he lost all of his innocence. What do we learn from these two cases? It's a cycle of social and systematic failure. It starts from the arrest. The mistreatment, the maltreatment starts from the time when the person is booked or arrested. They're taken to jail. There are certain rights which are denied. Unfortunately, the system says, the law says that the arresting officer shall determine the age. Why would the arresting officer determine the age when he doesn't care? Then the second responsibility is on the judicial magistrate before whom the child is produced. If the judicial magistrate even apprehends that he might be a juvenile, immediately they should be sent over for forensic examination so that the age can be verified, ossification test, and all the forensic that is required for this. The magistrates also don't care. The system does not care for them. Then the cycle brings them to detention. Once they're detained in a prison where there are other inmates who are living there from for a longer period. They have learned their ways in the system. They see a new person coming in. They try to coach him how to survive in the system, and there is no hope. Then there is minimum to no rehabilitation. In the current system in Pakistan, and this is a common situation throughout Pakistan, there is absolutely no rehabilitation during incarceration. There are some projects which are being run by different NGOs. These are not government run projects. So ये 6-7 महीने के लिए चलते हैं, फिर बंद हो जाते हैं जब इनके ग्रांट्स खत्म हो जाते हैं। फिर 2-2.5 साल बाद जब नए ग्रांट्स मिलते हैं तो ये फिर आते हैं, फिर ये सिस्टम चलते हैं। तो कोई सिस्टमैटिक रिहैबिलिटेशन नहीं है, और ना ही इसकी कोई अकाउंटेबिलिटी है कि ये रिहैबिलिटेशन काम कर भी रहा है या नहीं कर रहा। सिर्फ एक प्रोग्राम जो गवर्नमेंट फंडेड है और वो गवर्नमेंट बड़ा रिलीजियसली फॉलो करती है, वो रिलीजियस एजुकेशन है। सो देर इज वन मौलाना हु कम्स टू द प्रिजन एंड हु ओनली टीच देम, बेटा जुर्म करना बहुत बुरी बात है, तुमने गुनाह किया है, अल्लाह ताला तुम्हें माफ नहीं करेगा। और वो उनको सिर्फ ये बातें बताते हैं। वो उनको उनके मसले नहीं समझते। अगर उन्होंने पॉवर्टी की वजह से क्राइम किया है या उनके साथ कोई एंगर मैनेजमेंट के इशू हैं, वो सारे इश्यूज को दबा दिया जाता है। सो द ओनली प्रोग्राम द गवर्नमेंट इज रनिंग इनसाइड द प्रिजन is the religious education. All the other programs are being run by independent NGOs, and those programs are also bound to different grants they get from international organization. Sometimes, a political scenarios or situation changes in the country, you're not favorable NGOs, and unfortunately, the program gets cancelled. So there are a lot of issues. And then they are released with that minimum rehabilitation where the problem why they have committed an offense is still there. The poverty is there, the anger is there, the psychological issues are there, the abuse of family is there, the peer pressure is there. Now they're released. They're released and asked to go back into the same house, which is the cause of why they have become a criminal at the first place. So they start living in the same house, they relapse because of the high risk environment, and then they're arrested again. So it's a cycle of abuse which continues to go on. So it's a systematic failure. Where can we stop this systematic failure? So this is the bigger picture. One may think where to stop. I mean, it's very easy to talk about कि जी इनके साथ अच्छा बिहेव करो, एम्पैथी के साथ बिहेव करो। एक विक्टिम भी है ना, विक्टिम सेंट्रिक भी होते हैं कुछ ऑफेंसेस जिसमें लॉ इन्फोर्समेंट को विक्टिम का भी सुनना है या उसकी भी बात सुननी है। तो बिगर पिक्चर के अंदर अगर हम देखें तो हमें ये आइडेंटिफाई करने की जरूरत है फ्रॉम द एंट्री लेवल, फ्रॉम द टाइम व्हेन द ऑफेंस इज कमिटेड एंड दे आर अरेस्टेड। फ्रॉम दैट लेवल, फ्रॉम दैट एंट्री लेवल वी हैव टू फिगर आउट कि इसको रोका कैसे जा सकता है। इसको रोकने का बड़ा आसान तरीका है। अगर वो माइनर है और उसने कोई बड़ा जुर्म नहीं किया, या उसने कोई पेटी ऑफेंस किया है, किसी को जान से नहीं मारा, किसी को फिजिकल हार्म नहीं की, कोई चीज चोरी की है, तो आपका कानून कहता है वो चोरी वाली चीज वापस लेके जिसका सामान है उसको दे दो और उस बच्चे को प्रोबेशन में डाल दो। तो आपने उसको सिस्टम में जाने से तोड़ रोक दिया, तो आपने वो साइकिल ब्रेक कर दिया। दूसरा तरीका, अगर वो एंगर मैनेजमेंट एडिक्शन की वजह से क्राइम कर रहा है, उस नशे का आदी है, नशा पूरा करने के लिए चोरी कर रहा है, तो आप उसको रिहैबिलिटेशन सेंटर में भेज दें। उसकी आदत कम होना शुरू होगी, उसको नशे की लत खत्म होगी, वो चोरी करना बंद कर देगा। रादर देन सेंडिंग देम टू जेल, you break the cycle. It's also important to understand that why juveniles commit an offense, and this is the stage where judicial appreciation is needed. This is where the judicial magistrate comes into picture. They need to assess why this person has committed this offense. What is the causation of crime? By causation of crime, I don't mean that they have to have a very criminological data available to them and understand the psyche of the criminal, or have to have a clinical psychologist appeared before them who could explain कि ये psychopath है या ये जो है बड़ा होने के बाद serial killer बन जाएगा. No, facts are very enough. For example, अगर अहमद 13 साल की उम्र में एक सनग्लास और हेडफोन चोरी करके 3 साल की उसको सजा मिल रही है, और अगर मैजिस्ट्रेट उस वक्त उसको एम्पैथी के साथ ट्रीट करके वो सनग्लासेस और वो हेडफोन्स वापस कर देता कंप्लेनेंट को, तो साइकिल ब्रेक हो जाता. उसने ऐसा कोई ऑफेंस नहीं कमिट किया जिसकी वजह से ये अलार्म रेज हो सके या ये सोचा जा सके कि ये ऑफेंस अगर इसको यहाँ नहीं रोका गया तो ये ज़्यादा इनकरेजिंग होगा इसके लिए और ये ज़्यादा सीरियस ऑफेंस करेगा. Maybe he would have needed a couple of sessions with a therapist, or maybe he would have needed some sessions with a probation officer, and he would have been fine. So, this is where the bigger picture is. The reason why we don't understand all of this is because our justice system is segregated. We say the justice system has nothing to do with all of these organizations who are community based organizations. So the judicial setup automatically assumes that we are not part of the community. And because they think we are not part of the community and they separate themselves, the judge says, I have to be emotional less when I'm looking at the case. This is just a fact. You're wrong, sir. These are not facts. This is a story. This is a story of a 13-year-old which is going to lead to recidivism. It's a story which is very important. So you cannot be emotional less. You're part of the community. The Juvenile Justice System Act 2018 categorically states that the judicial magistrate is part of the community. In fact, it says it is the chairperson of the community. So because he's chairing the community, he has to make sure that he has to ask different factors or different sectors of society to come in and assist him. How can this person be helped? How can we help this individual? So this is the bigger picture. Why these current rehabilitation strategies are failing? It's because overcrowded juvenile facilities. I've just shared the data with you. 277 inmates in the central prison in the Youthful Offenders Industrial School, which has the capacity of 60. And because it has the capacity of 60 inmates, the grants they receive is also for 60. So they have to disburse the grant to a population which is 277. Obviously, it is going to be very different. Lack of psychological support, education, and skill training. There is no skill training. There is one gym that is available in the prison, जहाँ पे उनको कहते हैं कि आप एक्सरसाइज करें जब उनको क्रेविंग्स होती हैं, और उनको उठा के ट्रेडमिल पे खड़ा कर देते हैं और बोलते हैं भागो. और वो बेचारा बच्चा वो ट्रेडमिल पे भागे जा रहा है, उसको पता भी नहीं है वो क्यों भाग रहा है. उसको ये भी नहीं बता रहे कि तुम्हें इसलिए भगा रहे हैं कि जो तुम्हें क्रेविंग्स हो रही है जो एडिक्शन की, वो उसको कंट्रोल करने के लिए. इट वर्क्स एज अ टॉर्चर टेक्निक फॉर दैट जुवेनाइल हु इज बीइंग आस्क्ड टू रन फॉर 45 minutes on a treadmill. He doesn't know that he's being rehabilitated. He's been asked to do this because they don't know any other way of controlling that inmate. Psychological support by means of psychological support is the staff who's managing the inmates are managing inmates. They're not managing children. They don't know if they are managing children. There is no training. There is no sensitivity training. There is no empathy training. There is no concept to them to understand that these children have to be dealt differently. There has to be some sort of softness for them. So they treat them like inmates. They hit them, they punish them. Corporal punishment, torture is not allowed in prison, but these kids get beaten up. ज्यादा तंग करते हैं तो इनको बैरिक के बजाय बाहर खुली जगह पे सुला देते हैं कि यहाँ पे तुम बैरिक में नहीं सोगे, अब तुम ये बाहर जमीन पे सोगे. सो वो एक 15-16 साल के बच्चे के लिए एकदम रात में अकेले एक जगह पे सोना, कि रात में ठंड भी हो जाएगी और कभी ओस भी गिरती है, तो उसके लिए बड़ा एक ट्रोमैटिक एक्सपीरियंस है. सो दीज ऑल ऑफ दीज थिंग्स आर इन द existing in prison. Absence of post release monitoring or community integration. This is a very important aspect. When we talk about breaking of the cycle, once an inmate is released from the prison, however long the imprisonment was, once they come out, there is no supervision of that particular inmate. Where is he going to live? If he is coming back to the same society and the same vicinity where he has learned criminal behavior in his house or in his surrounding or in his neighborhood or with his friends, he's going to redo the same things because there is There is no training for him that how to not fall into the same trap. So because there is no monitoring and there is no community reintegration, they fall into the same trap. I'll share a very interesting observation. This is data is not compiled yet. This is part of my MPhil research. One of the questions that I've put in my survey for MPhil research was, if you know a juvenile who has been in prison and he's looking for a job, would you employ him or ask a friend to employ that juvenile? You would be surprised that 95% people said no, they would not. So I actually put in yes, no, maybe, and I was hoping that a larger population would say maybe. They'll look into the facts of the case. I was shocked when I saw that 95% of them said no, we will not. So there is no community reintegration. There is no support from that community. There is a lot of taboo attached. There is a lot of humiliation attached. Then, because there are no government funded rehabilitation program, there is no accountability. We don't know there is any check and balance. We don't know if the program is actually successful or not. In the year 2017, there was this program which was called the nutrition program, which was being run by WHO. And according to that program, the inmates were supposed to given healthy food. By healthy food, there was a salad which was given to all of these inmates कि आप वो salad खाएं, तो maybe if they have healthy food, they'll have healthy thoughts. So they continue that for for a couple of months, and then the funds ended and the program stopped. And when the WHO asked for the census, like, did this help to anyone? They said, we don't know, because we did not check if anyone who was released from the prison after having all that healthy food, if that healthy food helped in any way or not. So that program ended, and WHO said, we are not going to give any money to the prison, especially to Sindh prison. They were very angry. Punjab, there were some census available. They said yes, some of the kids who were addicted to heroin and other things, and they were depriving themselves from food, so they were attracted to this new kind of food. So they started eating, and this was very nutritious for them. But in Sindh, there was absolutely no data. The sentencing policies, as we have just discussed, um, the courts are quite blinded with the facts of the case. They are giving death penalties to juveniles, which is actually prohibited in the law. You're not supposed to give them death sentence. It is prohibited under the law. They're still giving death sentences. They're not supposed to give them harsh punishment or corporal punishment. They still uphold punishments which are corporal or harsher in level, in nature. The Juvenile Justice System Act of 2018 actually emphasized on diversion. It says that it should be, if there is a diversion, the diversion is possible, the crime should be diverted, the punishment should be diverted into something else. So it does talk about community based sentences or community services or other community related help to the juvenile. Unfortunately, all of this is available in the law, but it's not being practiced. This case is still pending in the court. There is this juvenile offender who is an addict. The court was given evidence that he is an addict. You please don't send him to the youthful industrial school, because the drugs is very easily accessible and available in the youthful industrial school. You can very easily purchase drugs inside. So don't send him there. There's a rehabilitation center, and the family was willing to, pay the money for the rehabilitation. You punish him for rehabilitation center that he has to remain there for 1 year or 2 year, whatever. The judge didn't agree and imprisoned him for 4 years of incarceration in the youthful industrial school. So he's now back into the same system where everything is very easily accessible, and every other person around him is actually justifying his cause of addiction. So he's back into the same system, and he's obviously still an addict. I mean, I don't know how this is in sin. One of the things which is, I'm sorry, I'm going to go back on the previous slide. This is also something which is very frequently happening. All the offenses under the Juvenile Justice System Act, all the offenses, be it a murder case, are supposed to be bailable in nature. So if you can give them bail, you immediately give them bail, unless the kid is involved into a very heinous or a serial nature offense. In that situation, bail can be denied, but generally bail should be given. So what the judges do, they put such an hefty surety amount, which they know the families can't give. So they won't be able to come out of prison. A lot of them are actually people who are coming from the different parts of Pakistan for work. They're laborers. They don't have their families here. The families are not even aware about them being arrested or ending up in prison. So they don't have any money for bail. So they show that we have given them bail. For the government, they're saying कि सर हमने तो दे दी जमानत, अब उसके बाद पैसे नहीं है तो हम क्या करें. अगर आप 3 लाख 4 लाख की श्योरिटी रखेंगे तो वो कहाँ से वो श्योरिटी लेकर आएगा. हालांकि लॉ कहता है कि 50,000 से ऊपर की श्योरिटी नहीं देनी है आपने, उससे कम की रखनी है. आपने मेक श्योर करना है कि वो बच्चा जेल से निकल जाए बाहर, उस सिस्टम के अंदर ज्यादा दिन ना रहे. तो ये जो एक ये बड़ी कॉमन प्रैक्टिस है. या तो वो बेल डिसमिस कर देते हैं, अगर नहीं डिसमिस करते तो वो श्योरिटी इतनी हेफ्टी अमाउंट की रखते हैं कि वो बच्चा श्योरिटी दे ही नहीं पाती उसकी फैमिली. या
आपने कहा कि 50,000 से ऊपर की नहीं रखनी है. दिस इज लॉ
यस
and they are breaking the law.
यस
The people who are delivering law are breaking the law.
यस. So there are different counterparts who are supposed to assist the judge. The most important person in the court is the prosecutor. It is his job to assist the court. Sir, you can't put more surety than 50,000 rupees. It's a juvenile. Because the judge is relying on the prosecutor's assistant. Prosecutors think they are police's lawyer. So they have to support the police. So they don't do their job properly. There are mechanisms for accountability available for the prosecutors, for the law enforcement, even for the judicial officers. But who's going to utilize that remedy of accountability? That same child who's ending up in prison, जिसका ट्रायल उसी जज ने चलाना है, उसी प्रोसिक्यूटर ने चलाना है और उसी इन्वेस्टिगेटिंग ऑफिसर ने चलाना है. तो वो अपने ऊपर एक और नई मुसीबत लेने के बजाय वो कहते हैं कि ठीक है, जो जैसे चल रहा है वैसे चल रहा है. अनफॉर्चुनेटली it's because of lack of accountability, not because of lack of knowledge.
So there's a prosecutor in place, but there's no defense lawyer.
There are defense lawyers,
What
but
are they?
defense lawyers do argue before the court के surety कम कर दें. The discretion is with the judge. The judge can only limit its discretion when the prosecutor is also pitching in and saying that we don't mind if the surety is decreased. But if the prosecutor in the court is saying, no, sir, we want hefty surety, then the judge is bound. How much of yes, the judge have to, because there is a victim, there is a crime, there is an FIR. So the judge has to, because if the judge does not take that into consideration, they will end up in appeal. And if they go in appeal, then there are adverse findings for the judges. There are a lot of factors which are coming in, penetrating the system in a very negative manner. There is a lot of negative supervision of the district judiciary from the superior judiciary, unfortunately, without sounding and inviting contempt of court. Uh, um, Socioeconomical and environmental factor. This is where all of you come into the picture. The socioeconomical and environmental factors are very important. This is something which has been documented by several years of research by different criminologists. And they say these are the 4 major components of juvenile delinquency and recidivism. I'm not going into the very academic discussion of why crime are committed, because obviously, it will take another day. Poverty is one of the most, prevalent causes of juvenile delinquency and recidivism. Lack of education, unstable home life, and gang influence. Now, what does poverty means? Does poverty mean someone who doesn't have money to eat? They have no food at their home? No. Poverty could also mean not being able to find that luxury which is common around that child. I mean, did you guys go through that news? A 14-year-old boy stabbed his mother because his mother could not buy new clothes for that kid. They had food in their house. She just didn't have money for extra, clothes for Eid. So the child got really angry and stabbed his mother because all of his friends were wearing new clothes for or buying new clothes for Eid. This is also poverty. This is also lack of resources. This is also not being able to achieve what they view in the society and what is shown as comforts of society or luxuries of society, not being able to buy a new laptop, not being able to buy a new phone, not being able to eat something fancy. There's also this incident, I don't know if you have read about it or not. There was this kid who wanting to eat burger from this particular franchise because a lot of people were going there and his family could not afford. So he bit his father's face because the father was not being able to take him to that particular franchise for a piece of burger. Now this sound very, कि इतना इतना क्या एंगर इशू हुए हैं बच्चों को कि आपको एक बर्गर के लिए आपको इतनी बदतमीजी, आपने अपने वालिद साहब को काट लिया या अपनी वालदा को आपने छुरी से मार दिया। लेकिन ये जो फैक्टर्स हैं ये आपकी सोसाइटी में डे टू डे डिस्कस होते हैं। मैं आपको एक बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग, ऑफ द टॉपिक जा रही हूँ लेकिन एक बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग सिचुएशन बताती हूँ। आई वेंट टू सेनेट once for briefing them about some international law situation, and I was talking to senators, not ordinary people but senators, and one of the senators got up and said, the clothes you're wearing are very nice, where did you buy them? I do think about this comment of her, and I do think these are the common situations that we find, we think that this is a common ground. This is where we connect with this particular person. This makes us relevant in the room. So if you see in your surrounding, you see young children talking about, we went to this fancy dinner, we went to this particular place for picnic, our father bought a new car, or we are shifting into a new house, I bought new school bag, I have a better uniform, I have new stationery, things like that. This is all poverty. Why? Because it is a survival driven crime. For a child, survival means to have that particular luxurious thing in his hand, because if he doesn't have it, he's not relevant in the room. And if he's not relevant, he's not respected. He's not cool for that, for that room or for that audience. So that is why these petty behavior or petty crime behavior starts from there. Snatching, stealing. क्लासरूम्स के अंदर कितनी चोरियां होती हैं, नई स्टेशनरी आप स्कूल में ले जाएं, वापस कभी भी वो स्टेशनरी वापस नहीं आती, वो ज्योमेट्री बॉक्स में से कोई ना कोई निकाल लेता है। तो ये जो बिहेवियर है ये इनकरेजिंग बिहेवियर है बच्चों के लिए। अगर आप इसको स्कूल लेवल के ऊपर टीचर्स इसको सिखाएंगे नहीं, बताएंगे नहीं, दैट इट्स ओके इफ यू डोंट हैव अ न्यू पेन, इफ इट्स ओके इफ योर स्टेशनरी इज नॉट as cool as the other students, it's fine.
So that's an interesting point you're making. Whether it can all be encompassed in poverty is different. मेरा सिर्फ एक सवाल है. How did you respond to the senator?
How do I respond to the senator? I said, anyway, moving on. Lack of education. Lack of education, school dropouts, fewer opportunities of personal growth or employment. Education in Pakistan is again very, it's a very debatable situation. It is also luxurious. There is a population which goes to government schools, there is a population which goes to private school, and there is a population which goes to high class private schools. And education is very different from the demographic. If you're going to a private school, the education level is very different. If you're going to a mediocre private school, the education level is very different. If you're going to a very expensive private school, the education level is very different. The lack of education we are talking about actually means all of these three demographics. It's not necessary that if they're educating the child, if they're getting A levels, O levels education, they will not fall into delinquency, or they will not commit reoffending, or they will not commit crime. It's because the school is not paying attention to their behavior. So when we say lack of education, we are basically talking about the behavior. We see there is a pattern. स्कूल से कंप्लेन आती है, पेरेंट्स उस स्कूल से निकाल के दूसरे स्कूल में बच्चे को एडमिशन करा देते हैं, rather than addressing that complaint, rather than focusing on why that complaint was actually raised in the first place. Then school dropouts के अंदर जो क्रिमिनोलॉजिस्ट रिसर्च शो करते हैं वो ये कहते हैं कि जो अंडर प्रिविलेज तबका है, जब वो स्कूल ड्रॉप आउट हो जाता है और आपके जितने भी एम्प्लॉयमेंट के रिसोर्सेज हैं वहाँ पे अगर मिनिमम क्राइटेरिया मेट्रिक है और वो मेट्रिक तक पहुंचे ही नहीं क्योंकि उन्होंने स्कूल 8वीं जमात में 7वीं जमात में छोड़ दिया था, तो वो मिनिमम एम्प्लॉयमेंट क्राइटेरिया पे भी नहीं पहुंचेंगे. सो ऑटोमेटिकली इट इज गोइंग टू बी अ लॉट ऑफ अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट इशू, एंड इफ दे आर नॉट एम्प्लॉयड, दे डोंट हैव एनी वर्क, दे डोंट हैव एनी मनी कमिंग इन, so they will try to channelize that need or that energy into something else. Unstable home life, domestic violence, neglect, and parental absence. This is something that I have actually seen a lot in a lot of cases that I do. Most of the juvenile offenders who are very violent in terms of their behavior, they're coming from a home which is unstable, where there is domestic abuse, where there are single parents or there are no parents, they're being raised by uncles and aunties and grandchildren, or families are going through divorces, um, or one of the family member is someone who's using drugs or into criminal activities. This is where a lot of juveniles fall into the delinquency. Then gang influence and pressure, the friends circle they have, people they are meeting, if they are coming from that particular mindset, then it is very easy for that juvenile to actually learn that behavior. There are two things in the socio-economic and environmental factor which is actually relevant to the Pakistani society. Overwhelming proportion of the juvenile population in the prison is coming from families where the child is abandoned. So there are no families. They are either being raised by their relatives or they are laborers working in Karachi for money and their parents have employed them to different places. So they are coming from a very underprivileged background and they're coming from abandoned family where the family's first incentive is that, you have to go earn money. So that is one of the factor. Then the social disparity is one of the factor in the socio-economical demographic, which actually impacts the juveniles a lot, is the way the justice system deals with juveniles. It's a very discriminatory treatment based on the financial background. Umar's case is one of the example of such disparity. Agar koi, unfortunately, I mean, with the fear of sounding a bit offensive, अगर कोई अमीर बच्चा होता और किसी की गाड़ी से सनग्लासेस और हेडफोन्स चुरा लिए होते तो 3 साल की तो सजा ना होती, शायद एक आध थप्पड़ पड़ के और 2-3 लड़ाइयाँ होने के बाद वही मामला खत्म हो जाता. लेकिन चूंकि वो चाय वाला था और वो चाय की दुकान पे वेटर की तरह काम कर रहा था तो किसी को उस पर रहम नहीं आया. सो ये जो डिस्पैरिटी है ये बहुत बहुत ऑब्वियस है सिस्टम के अंदर, और ये डिस्पैरिटी आपको जनरली भी अपने आसपास में दिखेगी. आप अगर बाजार में कभी शॉपिंग कर रहे हैं या कहीं गुजर रहे हैं और आप देखेंगे कोई बेगर बच्चा है रोड के बीच में आएगा तो पुलिस वाला उसको थप्पड़ मार के वहां से हटाएगा. लेकिन अगर कोई और शख्स है जो गलत तरीके से रोड क्रॉस कर रहा है तो थप्पड़ तो कभी नहीं मारेंगे. यस, देयर इज गोइंग टू बी अ येलिंग एंड स्क्रीमिंग, बट द डिस्पैरिटी इज वेरी वेरी ऑब्वियस इन द जस्टिस सिस्टम, एंड दैट डिस्पैरिटी एक्चुअली impacts juvenile because a lot of refusal of their fundamental rights at the time of arrest starts from this disparity. Not informing the parent when the child is arrested, keeping them detained in a lockup which is not permitted under the law just because there is no parent in the prison or they can't afford a lawyer who can actually tell their story. By the time they get a lawyer on the expense of state, it is already too late. They're already in the system. So this is again a research phenomena. Impact of punitive approach actually impacts a great deal of impact on juvenile mindset. It puts the psychological trauma and mental health issue. It also creates cognitive and social development. It hampers the cognitive and social development in the child. Increased recidivism. There is a greater chance that if a child is sent to a punitive system, if he's incarcerated, the chances of him recommitting are much more higher compared to a child who is not sent to the punitive system and given any other alternative other than the punishment. Then there is attachment with family. Obviously, they feel detached with their family. They find friend outside the family, which is again very dangerous. There is an identity crisis. Their physical health is also impacted, and then there is a long term toll on their life. If they're an addict, they become completely reliant on their addiction, and slowly and gradually they become a hopeless case, and by the time they're adult age 22, 23, there is no way that you can bring them back to a normal life. So these are the researches that supports the data that I've just shared. What can we do? What is the law actually providing, and what can we do as a social economical support or a community support? There are two things that are very important. The diversion program, there is a pre-arrest diversion and there is a post-arrest diversion. Pre-arrest diversion means that at the time of arrest, the moment the kid is arrested and the police officer takes the child to prison, the community service officer or the probation officer should assess the case and assess the criminal liability. If the criminal liability is such where there is a physical harm is involved, if someone is physically harmed, if there is a victim in the case who has been physically harmed, or he has made he's committed sexual offense and there is a victim of that, in that situation, the pre-arrest diversion require an immediate psychological assistance. If that child has committed that offense because of some psychological issue, or if that child has committed an offense because of the thrill of committing the offense. And that probation officer should immediately ask the arresting officer to post bail and then direct the child to appear before the court rather than sending them to jail. The post-arrest diversion, if this does not happen, if the pre-trial diversion is not taken place and the child is arrested and placed before the court, and the court thinks that there should be a trial, the court should come up with the right quantum of punishment, which means that if the law says that it is punishable with 3 years, we will give him 3 years of community service, or we'll give him 6 months of community service, and after 6 months we'll rehear the case and try to assess if there is more community service required, and the child will go under the supervision of the probation officer. This is what diversion means. If there is a loss of property, if something that has been stolen, the child and the parents of the child or the guardian of the child will be directed by the law enforcement and the court to reimburse. For example, अगर उसने glasses और headphone चुराया है तो भाई वो glasses और headphone आप वापस कर दें, और आपने उनको reimburse कर दिया, एंड देन आप उस बच्चे को डाइवर्जन के अंदर ले गए क्योंकि वो स्टेट की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है. सो ये विक्टिम ड्रिवन क्राइम नहीं है. लेकिन अगर कोई बच्चा किसी सेक्सुअल ऑफेंस के अंदर है या स्टॉकिंग के अंदर है या किसी ऐसी ऑफेंस के अंदर है जहाँ पे कोई विक्टिम इन्वॉल्व है फिजिकल हार्म का, तो उस सिचुएशन में विक्टिम से ये पूछा जाएगा कि इफ़ यू आर कंफर्टेबल अगर हम इसको ये सज़ा दें, एंड अगर विक्टिम को लगता है नहीं इसको तो बहुत ज़्यादा सज़ा होनी चाहिए, तो विक्टिम काउंसलिंग की भी ज़रूरत है. उसको समझाने की ज़रूरत है वाई दिस लेसर पनिशमेंट इज़ गुड फॉर बोथ ऑफ यू. So there has to be, this is what diversion mean. The court has to become an arbitrator and mediator and look at both the parties with the same innocence and with the same level of empathy. Then restorative justice, which is victim offender mediation. So both of them sit together. If it is a offense of hurt, offenses of hurt under the Pakistan Penal Code, and in fact, murder cases are compoundable. So there are provisions of compounding that offense that are available under the law. If the courts think that the offender is actually not someone who has committed this offense with mens rea, or it was not a premeditated offense, or it is not something which is coming from a serial offenders category, in that situation, the court can become a mediator and mediate if the victim and offender should come into a compromise and if the matter can be compounded.
कंपाउंडिंग का मतलब बता.
जी, कंपाउंडिंग ऑफ ऑफेंस का मतलब ये होता है कि अगर हर्ट कॉज हुआ है, उस हर्ट की एक कीमत है अंडर द पाकिस्तान पीनल कोड, जिसको हम अर्श और दमान के नाम से कहते हैं, विच इज अ क्वांटिफाइड compensation. So you compensate the victim for the hurt and the person will not go into jail. Physical hurt and murder में दियत का लफ्ज इस्तेमाल होता है, which is a fine, खून बहा जिसको हम कहते हैं, तो वो पे करने के बाद आप उसको जेल ना भेजें. This is what victim offender mediation means. Then family group conferencing. If the court comes to this conclusion that the problem is in the home, so the child needs support and there is no other way, because we don't have places where we can actually, send children for so that they can get better. We don't have foster care available. So ultimately the child will go back to his own house. So in that situation, the restorative justice demands that the parents should be counseled as well. If they need counseling, there are probation officers available who go to the homes of these individuals and tell them different techniques of handling the situation. Then restorative circle means that you keep coming back to the probation officer to see if there is any improvement, if the child has relapsed, or if there is any apprehension of relapse. And then community boards are available where the community sits together and they decide, we don't want this. This is a very serious offense. This child has committed rape. There are offenses where juveniles were also guilty of rape, which is a very heinous offense. So they don't want a rapist to be roaming around out of prison just because he's a juvenile. So there are other ways of handling this. None of that happens in Pakistan, by the way. Success story.
To be part of the system.
So there are two success stories. There are more, but I'm sharing the two which are very, something that I've actually witnessed myself. So there was this kid, 17 years old. He's now a vocational trainer. He ended up in prison and he got sentenced. He's from Faisalabad. He comes from a very low income area in Punjab and he committed an offense. Went to the prison, got conviction. There was a program being run in the Punjab prison department at that time, which was helping for the literacy skills. So he became part of that program. He successfully completed that program, came out of prison, got an offer from that very NGO to work with them, started working with that NGO. Now he's teaching in the same prison as a vocational trainer and helping other children. So rehabilitation does work. Once you break the cycle, you actually give them a hope to become a better person. The other story is of Y. Y was also 16 years old when he was punished. He got imprisonment for 3 years. He got probation at the age of after 1.5 years of incarceration. He used to love music and he really wanted to learn how to play guitar. At that time, Karachi prison was running this program where an organization was coming in and teaching musical instruments. So he got benefit of that and he learned how to play guitar. He came out of prison on probation. He applied in that NGO. That NGO helped him to get a job, started working, and now he's working in the Central Prison Karachi and teaching music to the juvenile inmates. So he's someone who was also part of the system, came out of the system and become a better person. But something which is important to take away from this is these are the programs which were not being run by the government. They were programs which were being run by international organization and they got benefit of it. So imagine the miracle that we can do if the government decides to do a permanent rehabilitation program in the system. So there is a cross-sectoral collaboration. Law, I represent law. I'm here to tell you how law enforcement can be changed, juvenile justice system can be reformed, legal aid services can be reformed. You're from health. You can talk about the mental health screening and importance of mental health screening. You can talk about the importance of substance abuse treatments. You can talk about the importance of trauma and how the trauma-based services can help the child to get better. Media, I don't know if anyone is here from media, but media can play a very pivotal role in reducing recidivism by raising awareness, breaking or countering harmful stereotypes, promoting advocacy. Education is very, very important. Early intervention program, teachers play a very important role. If they see there is a pattern behavior in a child, they should intervene, they should inform the parents. Then life skills, inclusion and retention, civil society, which is all of us, community outreach, police advocacy, support systems to the families who are surviving or suffering from this. So there's a comparative table that I've prepared, Pakistan versus Norway versus New Zealand. So Norway, as we said, is one of the most successful countries where recidivism rate is very low. And their motto is that by the year 2030, recidivism is going to go zero. And 35 का उनका motto ये है कि वो juvenile criminal खत्म कर देंगे. Delinquency नहीं खत्म कर सकते because it's a behavioral issue as well, but they will make sure by 2035 के उनके पास juvenile offenders ही ना हो, justice system के अंदर वो criminal justice system में आए ही ना. वो इस तरीके से अपने सिस्टम को रिवैम्प करेंगे. आप अगर देखें इस टेबल के अंदर कि आपको कितना फर्क दिखता है, उनकी फिलॉसफी क्या है. हमारी है punitive deterrent. We don't care about the child, we only want deterrence. Norway work on a philosophy of rehabilitation and restoration. New Zealand work on restoration and cultural sensitivity. They are very mindful of their culture because they have a very indigenous culture in New Zealand as well. So they're very careful about that. The responsibility, Pakistan is 10 years, 15 years in Norway, 10 years in New Zealand, but it is also subject to a lot of scrutiny. Sentencing, R is custodial sentence. Norway is individualized alternative. New Zealand works on diversion, family group conferencing. Community involvement, ours is minimal. Norway has multi-agency welfare model. New Zealand has a very high family victim police collaboration. Role of indigenous models, we don't have any. New Zealand has a very strong indigenous model. Recidivism rate, Pakistan is very high. We don't have any consolidated data, but the rate is very high. I'm telling this because of my day-to-day practice. It's very common to keep finding same faces of juvenile offenders in prison again and again. Norway is very low. New Zealand is again low and declining because of the restorative methods. This is what all we can do. We can reform the sentencing policy. We can invest into community rehab. We can promote media narrative. We can intervene when we see a child is being handled brutally by the police. If you're walking on the road, if you see a police officer mishandling with a child, intervene. Report if you see a child is being treated brutally. If you're having a cup of tea in a Pathan ki hotel ki dukan and you see someone like Ahmed being beaten up just because he stole a pair of sunglasses or a headphone, intervene. Communicate. If you observe that a child have a delinquent tendency, communicate with the child. Another very important data that I would like to share from my research. There's another question that I put in the survey where I've asked the audience, if you see a child behaving indifferently or violently, what would you do? There were 4 options. Call the police, talk to the parents, talk to the child, do nothing. 65% of said call the police. 5% said they will talk to the parents. Rest of them said they'll do nothing.
No one wanted to talk to the child.
Yes, nobody wanted to talk to the child. It was general audience, so I've shared it on different the social media and people I knew. So it's a very mix and match audience. There are school kids who are also participating in this, basically from the age of 18 to any age. So up till now, I have received around 3,000 responses from different people from different sectors. There are government people involved in government sectors. There are lawyers, there are teachers, there are professors. So all of them collectively believe that they can call the police, but they will not communicate with the child if they see the child is behaving differently. Um,
Context that if you're out or street PHs or
so I say if you observe that
not where.
not where. So if you observe that a child is behaving differently, I didn't even say violently or criminally. I said if the child is behaving differently, what would you do? Call the police, tell the parents, talk to the child, do nothing. So
But was like, I mean, the context, yeah, because so I mean, one of the things that I would think of is that differently could mean like a whole range of things.
Yes.
So if I was like, for example, answering this survey, then I mean, I wouldn't say call the police because I wouldn't have the context. I wouldn't know the context in which to call the police, right?
Yeah.
So maybe I think overall, did they know? Did the respondents know that they were responding to a survey which with regards to criminal delinquency?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
probably that would have been the tip off to kind of say that if you're behaving that is, if you're observing that the child is behaving differently, then you call the police because they're more likely to.
So this is the 21st question, and the first 20 questions are about delinquency. Like, do you understand delinquency? So yeah, I mean, even otherwise, if you think that if it was something which the context was not even clear, even then, differently would not require calling police. Differently would mean, you will talk to the parents, or maybe you will not do anything about it. But calling the police, 65% of the people were thinking that they will immediately call the police rather than talking to the child or doing anything else.
What can we do when you say report if you witness or report to whom?
So you can report to the there is a app as well. There is also a home department helpline, Child Protection Services of Sindh, where you can actually report if a underage maid is being treated badly. You can also call 15, where you can report them that a juvenile is involved. That 15 call is surveillance is being done by the SSP, the senior superintendent. So they make sure that a senior officer is sent to help. There are mechanisms available for that, but I'm not saying that it will help in every situation, but at least it's a step towards betterment. The child protection services of Sindh government are comparatively better compared to calling the police for aid. Child protection service, I don't remember the helpline, but there is a helpline. When you call them, they send a probation officer or a child protection. So there are probation officers. There are probation officer, the employed of the government of Sindh. They'll come in, they'll take the child, they'll take him to the hospital if there are injuries, if there is FIR needs to. I can give you the number. I don't have it. I don't have it right now, but I can give it to you. That's it. So now we can discuss. Yes, you can call, again, calling police when children are begging on the road can lead to arrest of that child and sending them to prison. That's important. So thank you very much.
I think that is going to be the most impactful.
Which one?
How to go about the first point over there, reform
Reform
sentencing
sentencing
policies.
policies. So reform sentencing policies is very centric to the justice system. The courts have to do this. So I'll tell you a fun fact. 2018 के अंदर जुवेनाइल जस्टिस सिस्टम एक्ट आया था और उसके अंदर उन्होंने कहा कि आप रूल्स बनाएं, और हम 2025 में बैठे हुए हैं और अभी तक रूल्स नहीं बने हुए हैं. So we don't know how to implement the act without the rules. So what this means is that for reforming sentencing policies, the civil society have to be aware that there is a thing called Juvenile Justice System Act. By virtue of that act, there are supposed to be rules and there are no rules. So if there are no rules, we are supposed to advocate to make that those rules, right? आप उसको lobbying कहते हैं, आप peer pressure कहते हैं, आप अखबारों में लिखते हैं, आप petitions फाइल करते हैं, अगर आप फाइल कर सकते हैं, अगर आप किसी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन से हैं, आप कोर्ट्स जाते हैं. अभी रिसेंटली हमने एक कोर्ट से एक ऑर्डर लिया कि जो MLO रूल्स हैं 2020 के अंदर उनका एक्ट आया था और अभी तक उसके रूल्स नहीं बने, तो वो बाय द ऑर्डर ऑफ द हाई कोर्ट अब बन रहे हैं. उससे पहले तक there was no activity in the Sindh government कि जी ये rules भी बनाने हैं. So there is a lot since civil society can actually do. It needs judicial intervention and judicial intervention from a higher level, from a high court, Supreme Court level, rather than a district level. So this is what we can do about reforming of sentencing policies. Also, if you are part of an NGO, or if you know someone who is part of an NGO and you actually can go to, you have access to courts and you know that, ex juveniles are being trialed in this particular court, and you can go and you can help them to get a better lawyer who can help the judge understand that the sentencing policy has changed. They're not supposed to send them to prison. There is a diversion program available. We can send them to a rehabilitation center. This means all of that. So it is a very multi-sectorial approach in terms of reforming sentencing policies, which needs work from all four corners. Media reporting, journalists should be talking about it, doctors should be talking about it, wherever you can. By doctors, I mean psychologists, people who deal with other people. I mean also डॉक्टर्स इन जनरल, बिकॉज यू गेट पेशेंट्स. अगर आपके पास कोई हाई प्रोफाइल पेशेंट आए तो आप उसको बोलें सर सेंटेंसिंग रिफॉर्म्स की ज़रूरत है हमें, प्लीज डू समथिंग अबाउट इट.
पहले हो गया था.
देयर इट इज. जी देखिए, एक जो आप कह रही हैं इनका lack of education, it seems its lack of education goes all the way to the judges, essentially. So who each sector has to educate, right? Judges are very uneducated on certain matters. और यहाँ तो आप law का कह रही हैं, which one should understand. जैसे हम डॉक्टर के पास जाते हैं कि भी they would know the basics, right? So here it seems कि there's some very basic things which judges don't know. I don't want to, there must be many questions, and thank you for coming. I mean, it's incredible the work you do, and you're very courageous in doing it, and I hope you don't get burned out. But isme dekhiye, a couple of things. My daughter was working in legal aid for a while, and they do, some of their work is good, and they have really, I think, the circumstances that exist, they have done good work. I haven't worked there, but I was, I was sort of, if you look at the total system, my daughter at one point was working or had some work, and she was told to do some work with the juvenile offenders. And one of the things was that legal aid was helping, donations le rahe the, whatever, to get bail to get the kids out. And she met some parents, mothers mostly, think, who said, please don't let this child leave because ye bahar jaake ye phir wohi drugs lega. Mostly, as you said, drugs ka hota hai. So it's overwhelming, and I think one has to say कि किस जगह पे, where do you start working. So I you know, जो आपने बताया जो FIR का, I mean, to me it seems so obvious, right? कि वो जो एक दफा अगर वो एक हो गया है, and he's been that the FIR still continues to be in the register. So I was just thinking, where does one start? And to me, this seemed to be the most concrete thing, but where do you start for it?
It is, yeah.
Ms. Farah,
So,
can I-
Some
sorry.
years.
yes, sorry. I mean, there's so many questions, but yeah.
Just
I was
pretend-
just trying to add something so you can respond to
Okay.
both. So the thing she said that parents were not willing that the child should come out. I also witnessed something very unusual in where I live. I went to the union office to complain about water, and there was a child which they had caught him stealing some, I think, a mirror from a car or something. I don't know about that, but there were police sitting there, and they had somehow found the father of that child. The child was like 6 or 7 years, and the father was saying that please put him into jail. I cannot control my child. And the police was trying to counsel him कि आपने पैदा किया तो कुछ ख्याल तो कर लेना. And he was saying insistent कि नहीं मुझसे से ख्याल नहीं होता, आप इसको प्लीज जेल में डाल दें.
So,
Yeah.
to answer your question, incarceration does not only mean prison. Incarceration also means state rehabilitation centers where they can get help from their addiction. So, but the problem is that our courts are only sending them to prison rather than to the rehabilitation center. If they are in jail and they are not getting help for their addiction,
Sure.
they will obviously come out and again fall into the same trap. And because they're an addict, right, they will go and they start consuming the drugs again. So what they need is the need of the hour is not jail. The need of the hour is sending them to a rehabilitation center where they can actually work on their addiction. That also works as an incarceration. That is also sentencing. So there are different approaches of sentencing.
Yeah.
Secondly, जो हम बात कर रहे थे ना कि ब्रोकन सिस्टम फैमिली का बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट है. सो अब इमेजिन करें कि एक वालिद खुद अपने बच्चे को कह रहे हैं 6 साल के कि जी आप इसको जेल में डाल दो बिकॉज आई कांट हैंडल देम. सो जो घर के अंदर जो सबसे शैतान बच्चा होता है हमारे पास, उसका सबसे ज्यादा तरीका क्या है? उसको मारो. उसको इतना मारो कि बेचारा बात करना बंद कर दे या उसको सजाएं दें. आप उसको सिखाते नहीं है कि राइट बिहेवियर और रॉन्ग बिहेवियर क्या है. एंड देन ओवर पॉपुलेशन ऑफ कोर्स अनफॉर्चुनेटली इतनी ज्यादा है, फिर आपके पास एक्सेस नहीं है रिसोर्सेज का. Then there is a economical disparity in the system, in the country. You know, you don't have enough means of earning money, and then you have children at home. They have their own needs. You have to also send them to school. There are medical needs. There are so many things that parents have to do. Obviously, वो जो हम कहते हैं ना burn out हो गए parents, they don't have उनके पास तरीका नहीं है कुछ करने का. So the only thing we understand is कि अगर वो जेल चला जाएगा तो वो सही हो जाएगा. वो जेल जाके सही नहीं होगा.
Yeah. I'm sure there are many other hands, but yeah. Once, if there's time, then there are a few other things I want to add. Yeah.
I just have comments. The success story, both of them, after coming back to the society, continued to serve in the jail,
Yes.
right? I think the success would have been if they would have been accepted by the society. They are still outcasted. They're still working with inmates and still there.
They're back. So
Hmm.
for I could not see those outcasts. Wow, real successful.
Yeah. Can I quickly, हाँ, आप करें, please.
आपने एक बीच में जिक्र किया और वो बिल्कुल ख़त्म हो गया फिर कि जो छोटी लड़कियां हैं और उनको तो उनका आपका क्या एक्सपीरियंस है? आई वाज शॉक्ड अबाउट इट कि वो उनको अलग से नहीं रख रहे हैं?
उन केसेस में एक बहुत प्रॉब्लम हमें ये आता है कि हमारे पास गवर्नमेंट सपोर्टेड डाटा नहीं होता, और वो डाटा अगर होता भी है तो उसको सप्रेस किया जाता है। फॉर एग्जांपल, अगर उनका पे फॉर्म या बर्थ सर्टिफिकेट हम लेकर आना चाहें तो नादरा जनरली वो बर्थ सर्टिफिकेट नहीं देती है, क्योंकि वो प्रॉब्लम ये आएगा कि वो गवर्नमेंट सेंसस के अगेंस्ट चला जाएगा। एंड द ओनली रीजन, आई हैव स्पोकन टू अ लॉट ऑफ द जेल officials at a very higher level, and I've asked them, why don't you have a census for female juvenile offenders? There are 18, I know them, that there are 18 young girls between age of 15 to 17, and they are in prison, and they're living in adult women prison, and the answer is that we don't have a place for them. So the Juvenile Justice System Act of 2018 specifically provide that if there are female juvenile inmates, there have to be a separate building for them, and they can't be kept in the same jail as adult women, because that is against the law. So just because they don't have the buildings and they don't have the accommodation for them, they are booking them एज एन अडल्ट प्रिजन। उसका सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम ये है कि जब हम उनको ट्रायल में लेके जाते हैं, सो उनको जो जुडिशियल सिस्टम है वो उनको एज एन अडल्ट ट्रीट कर रहा होता है। कुछ केसेस के अंदर हमें ये सक्सेस मिली कि हमने उनकी बेल करवा दी, बिकॉज वी हैड सम एविडेंस अवेलेबल दैट दे आर जुवेनाइल, और उनको बेल मिल गई और वो बेल पे बाहर आ गई। लेकिन जिनको बिल्कुल बेल नहीं मिल पाती, और ज़्यादातर जो खवातीन जो बच्चियां जो जेल के अंदर हैं, वो ऐसे सिचुएशंस के अंदर हैं कि वो किसी घर में काम कर रही थी, मेड थी, वहां से पकड़ी गई और वो जेल के अंदर चली गई, या वो घर के अंदर कोई वालिद जो है वो मंशियात के काम में थे और पुलिस ने घर पे रेड मारी और घर से ड्रग्स बरामद हुई और वो घर के सारे लोगों को उठा के जेल में चले गए। तो वो इस तरीके से सिस्टम में बुक होती है। जो उनमें डिलिंक्वेंसी लेवल है वो बहुत कम है। मतलब हमारे पास वुमेन प्रिजन के अंदर सीरियस ऑफेंसेस के अंदर बहुत कम खवातीन हैं जिन्होंने बहुत हीनियस या सीरियस ऑफेंसेस किए होंगे। बाय हीनियस एंड सीरियस ऑफेंसेस आई मीन मर्डर या डकैती या आर्म्ड रॉबरी के अंदर वो शामिल होंगी। ज्यादातर जो खवातीन हैं वो चोरी, लड़ाई झगड़ा, हर्ट वाले सिचुएशन के अंदर होती हैं। तो ये बच्चियां भी उसी के अंदर होती हैं। बट द प्रॉब्लम इज कि अगर आपका कानून ये कह रहा है कि आपने उनको अडल्ट प्रिजनर्स में नहीं रखना, और फिर बच्चियों को बड़ी उम्र की औरतों के साथ रखना, इट्स ऑल्सो क्वाइट डेंजरस। उनकी उनकी अपनी वेलबींग के लिए काफ़ी ख़राब है, उनकी अपनी वेलबींग के लिए ठीक नहीं है। और वो चूंकि यंग होती हैं तो वो फिर वो एक जो गैंग और पीर बिहेवियर है वो उनके ऊपर ज़्यादा आता है, तो वो उससे बचने के लिए उन्होंने उसका सेंसस ही अलग किया हुआ है। अब इस चीज को हम एडवोकेट कर रहे हैं, व्हेन आई मेट द आईजी प्रिजन एंड आई टोल्ड हिम, उनका सर एक बैरिक अलग कर दें, जरूरी थोड़ी है कि आपने पूरी एक फैसिनेटेड बिल्डिंग बनानी है, आप एक बैरिक अलग कर दें, दरवाजे उसके बंद कर देंगे, भाई ये वाला जो बैरिक है ये इन 18 बच्चियों का है, इस बैरिक के अंदर अडल्ट हम फीमेल नहीं रखेंगे और आप उसको जुवेनाइल फीमेल प्रिजन कर दें। तो वो ये कहते हैं कि बच्चियां अच्छी होती हैं, ये बच्चियां नहीं हैं, ये बड़ी औरतें हैं, बच्चियां क्राइम नहीं करती। देर इज सो what on what level you will fight with them? There is not one problem. There is a problem of lack of understanding, but then there is a issue of morality. How would you beat morality and the belief system that we have in the minds of these stakeholders कि बच्चियां मासूम होती हैं, जो ऑफेंस करती हैं वो बच्चियां नहीं होती, वो औरतें होती हैं? How would you
I have
logically, how would you satisfy them?
I have a burning
गर्ल्स का क्या मतलब है और
वुमेन का क्या मतलब है?
can I please, देखिए, coming from the research and psychology point of view, and I'll try to make it very brief. It's always been fascinating, और इस पे बहुत research हुई है, mental health and violence in the family, and that happens in rich homes and poor homes, etc. It cuts across socioeconomic status. कि mostly boys who have mostly seen violence at home, they also are violent when they grow up with their wives or daughters or whatever. Mostly wives. Mothers ka kam hota hai, wives ka hota hai. But there have been studies where from the same home, and I'm coming from a different research, where from the same home, there may be one or two children who are not violent. And to me, that is always of interest, because the negative things are so obvious, maani nahi kiya, usne nahi kiya. But from the same home, you can have two kids who come out differently. And there's a lot of research done on that, can't go into it, but आप जो बातें कर रही थी, it's so obvious. And, it's as I said, it's incredible the work you do. But then I think one can figure out कि there may be homes in there, मसलन ये जो बाप कह रहा था बच्चे को वहाँ जेल में डाल दे, maybe other homes with the same level of quotes poverty who will not do that, or a home जहाँ ये हो रहा है but all kids are not, they don't get into theft, etc. So to me, getting the resilience and the positive side, which does happen, we often kind of, it's harder in the fewer cases, but I think those tell you a great deal more about the survivors and who was there. And it's usually one adult, jo, research mein, it could be a teacher, it could be an uncle, it could be that from a bad home, jahan ho raha hai, that you need one adult who can help you. So I'm just wondering, I mean, it's long drawn out, sorry for taking the time, but to me, that sort of research is uplifting. It tells you something about homes where these things don't happen. Why don't they happen, right? And why is one child violent and the other not? It's the same home. That's all I wanted. So, and I think that is important for us to
Of
know.
course, it's important to understand that if there is a child who is living in an abusive house, how did he break that cycle? And he came out as a better person. That is something that is very important, and one must think about it.
So we have some. Sorry.
डॉक्टर मालूम ऑनलाइन भी बहुत सारे लोग हैं जो कि बिल्कुल खामोश तमाशाई हैं. हाँ,
एक मिनट. So we'll move to online comments. डॉक्टर निदा आप पूछ लें, फिर उसके बाद मैं ऑनलाइन कुछ कमेंट्स पढ़ूं. जी प्लीज.
So मैं सर्जन हूँ, तो मैं सॉल्यूशंस के बारे में और ऑपरेट करके करेक्ट करने के बारे में सोचती हूँ. फैमिली कोर्ट्स होते हैं हमारे पास, राइट, which are given a specific task. Why can't we have juvenile courts where people who are educated about the law, the act, and have the sensitivity of handling these little children? So why can't we pursue the task of juvenile courts? Question number one. Number two is collaboration is the answer as far as I understand. So when your lawyers have so much of in-depth knowledge of the problem, can they collaborate? Because civil society is contributing a lot. Philanthropy is the nature of Pakistan, right? Second nature of Pakistan. So can there be collaborative effort with other not US funded NGOs, but locally funded NGOs like Karwan-e-Hayat is a good example of people who are providing mental health support, a collaboration of that kind where people are able to provide areas where these children can be offered rehabilitation. So I think we have to, because I've been listening to the yeah. Yes, I'm talking about juvenile courts and then lawyers or the legal aids, whosoever has more information about it, start looking out for collaborations with civil society.
So we have juvenile courts. So the cases of the juveniles are being proceeded in juvenile courts, but unfortunately the judge is the same person who's also dealing with adult prisoners. That is one issue. In 2007, the law reforms have suggested that the juvenile courts should also have a member in the courtroom which is coming from the community, so that the judge can actually de-alienate for 1 second from the regular cases, because he is the same person who's dealing with rape cases. He's basically conditioned to hear crime is a bad thing, right? So to break that momentum, the reform suggested that there should be one member from the civil society, a teacher or a psychologist or any person who can basically help them to understand the human part of the story or the facts, so that they can make better assessment. And if the assessment is something that would require intervention from a rehabilitation, so that child should be protected and not sent to a punitive prison or the youthful industrial school. That never happened because we don't have the resources. The same reforms also suggested that there should be one judge over 1,000 people. So the population of judges should be divided 1,000 person, one magistrate, right? So that is a very unrealistic approach. So to answer your question, unfortunately, we do have juvenile judges, but the philosophy of having a juvenile judge should be someone who doesn't deal with adult prisoners, so that he is not conditioned, right? So he has actually understood or try to make this comparison that I am not dealing with an adult, I'm dealing with a child, and he comes into the court with this approach. Unfortunately, all of the judges are part of this system, this society. The fabric of society is such that we have become a very barbaric community, and we don't give second chances to people. There are very few people who believe in giving second chances. Now, coming to your second question, where you think that lawyers and this community can actually play a part in actually making this collaborative effort, जैसे कारवान हयात काम करे, और भी बहुत सारी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं. जिंदगी ट्रस्ट ने एक बहुत अच्छा ऑफर किया था इन यूथफुल इंडस्ट्रियल स्कूल में, कि जिन बच्चों को आप प्रोबेशन पे छोड़ रहे हैं हम उनको पढ़ाते हैं, आप उनको हमारे स्कूल में भेजें, हम उनको पढ़ाते हैं. लेकिन वो कभी MOU नहीं साइन हो पाया गवर्नमेंट के साथ, बिकॉज ऑफ अ लॉट ऑफ रीजंस. आई डोंट नो व्हाट दोज रीजंस वर, बट ये हमेशा से एक प्रॉब्लम रहा है. कोलैबोरेटिव एफर्ट्स होते रहे हैं, करते रहे हैं लीगल एड सोसाइटी के साथ. मैंने खुद पर्सनली बहुत सारे काम प्रोजेक्ट्स में काम किया जो इंटरवेंशन बेस्ड काम थे, जिसमें जो बच्चे बेल पे बाहर निकल सकते थे उनके लिए बेल प्रोवाइड की. डिफरेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के साथ में कोलैबोरेटिव एफर्ट्स करके काम किए. बट यहाँ पे सिर्फ प्रॉब्लम कोलैबोरेशन का नहीं है. यहाँ जब तक गवर्नमेंट इन्वॉल्व नहीं होगा वो लॉन्ग रन में नहीं चल सकता, क्योंकि कोलैबोरेटिव एफर्ट सिर्फ एक प्रिजन तक तो बन सकते हैं. कराची में हो सकता है एक बहुत अच्छी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, कराची के तबके के कोई 17-18 लोग मिलकर एक सोचें जी हमने कुछ अच्छा काम करना है, लेकिन वो सिर्फ कराची की हद तक रहेगा, वो आगे नहीं बढ़ेगा. जब हम रिफॉर्म्स की बात करते हैं, हम सिटी बेस्ड रिफॉर्म के बारे में बात नहीं करते, हम सिस्टम रिफॉर्म के बारे में बात करते हैं. यहाँ पे आई थिंक जो सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट चीज़ है जो जुवेनाइल कोर्ट के जजेस को करने की जरूरत है, जो जस्टिस सिस्टम एक्ट में भी लिखा हुआ है कि आप रिकंसिलिएशन कमेटी बनाएं, उस कमेटी में DC को बिठाएं, वकीलों को बिठाएं, उस कम्युनिटी के बड़े लोगों को बिठाएं, बिजनेसमैन को बिठाएं, ताकि उनको पता चले कि उनके उस इलाके के अंदर क्या मसाइल हैं, यहाँ बच्चे ड्रग्स में क्यों जा रहे हैं, यहाँ ड्रग पेडलर घूम रहे हैं, बच्चों को किस किस्म के क्राइम्स के अंदर इन्वॉल्व किए जा रहे हैं, मल्टी सेक्टोरियल चीज़ें. बट द प्रॉब्लम इज जब तक गवर्नमेंट नहीं इन्वॉल्व होती तब वहां तक ये सस्टेनेबल प्रोजेक्ट्स नहीं बन पाते. ये कुछ टाइम के लिए रहते हैं और फिर ये ऑटोमेटिकली खत्म हो जाते हैं, बट ये हैं प्रोजेक्ट्स.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there are some comments जो important है, मैं सिर्फ वो मेंशन करके डॉक्टर आमिर आपकी तरफ आता हूँ. डॉक्टर सादिया ने शेयर किया है 1121 जो है वो प्रोटेक्शन सर्विसेज का नंबर है जो इम्पोर्टेंट है.
1121
या सो
21
1121. डॉक्टर अरसलान ने कमेंट किया है कि क्योंकि इतना इंटरकनेक्टेड प्रॉब्लम है सोसाइटी का, एक सजेशन ये है कि वी शुड स्टार्ट अडॉप्टिंग फैमिलीज लाइक आवर डोमेस्टिक एम्प्लॉयज. वी शुड नॉट सपोर्ट देम फाइनेंशियली बट वी शुड एजुकेट देयर फैमिलीज. और ऐसी कंट्री में जहाँ पे पॉवर्टी और लिटरेसी रेट कम है तो प्रॉब्लम. या नाउ फ्रॉम US, हाल मुकीम अमेरिका. And Dr. Rabia says that the nature of crime should be taken into consideration before pronouncing punishments. Dr. Amos.
I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that we have students from our PGD class sitting here also and online also. Rabia, Imran, Imtinan, Zubair. अभी तक ये लोग हैं. So that was जी Dr. Mozam.
Ms. Swarat, thank you very much for coming here. I was just remarking, we think we have problems in medicine, but they pale in comparison to जो आप लोग जो काम करते हैं. मेरा सिर्फ एक सवाल है, बाद में भी मैं पूछ लूंगी. जो शुरू में जो हदूद ordinance का, because that's something that I've looked at it also. The striking thing for me as a medical professional was that they used the term puberty. And the term puberty, it was never really explained. Agar in females, if puberty is essentially connected to menstruation, girls are now menstruating at the age of 11. So a Hudud ordinance mein, because I looked for that was never ever explained. Or dusra ek sirf ye sawal tha, you had mentioned a case of a blind woman. She was working somewhere and I know, and she was raped, if this is the same case.
And this was the case actually that created a lot of issues because Hudud ordinance mein, the issue was not forensic, तो अब Supreme Court ने कहा है ना नहीं, that's primary evidence, but उसके अंदर the issue of 4 witnesses,
For adult male
male
Muslim,
good Muslims and good Muslims.
yes, never
So-
committed Gunai Kabira.
Right. So मेरा सवाल उसमें ये sideline है, 4 गुड मुस्लिम्स खड़े होके अगर रेप देख रहे हैं तो उनके लिए क्या करना चाहिए for those 4 Muslims. सवाल उसमें, as I recall, that was essentially the case that really became international. And my recollection is that she was not stoned. She was released. And the other thing which people will yahan should know, particularly the physicians, कि जब ज़ियाउल हक ने the issue of cutting off hands, उसमें it was from ये surgeon करेगा, so it's done properly, neatly. That was the one time where the PMDC, if I recall, PMA actually came up and took the position that no physician will be involved in cutting of hands. So this is just 2 positive things कि ये कौम कर सकती है अगर खड़ी हो जाए.
So, sorry, so she was not, if she's talking of the same, she's talking of this.
I think it was
Same case was
So
actually stoning hui
Though
thi?
there are 2 cases. The one you're
Okay.
talking about, which actually resulted into a lot of media attention,
Yes,
came
yes.
afterwards.
Yeah.
The first case of conviction was of this lady. She was raped and she could not identify the rapist because she was blind. And the stoning was actually televised on PTV. So the
ये
subsequent
यहाँ पाकिस्तान में
yes,
हुआ था.
Pakistan में. And then subsequently there was this another conviction जिसके बाद जो woman movement शुरू हुई थी पाकिस्तान में,
Yes.
which was led by Asma Jahangir,
Yeah.
and she also went through a lot during that time.
Yeah.
And there were other very senior female lawyers were involved in that movement. और उसके बाद categorically जो है वो trial courts ने ये stand लिया, senior lawyers ने ये stands लिया कि कोर्ट्स का बायकॉट किया जाएगा कि अगर कोर्ट्स ने ये पनिशमेंट्स औरतों को देना शुरू की, रजम की, विच वाज स्टोनिंग टू डेथ, एंड विपिंग की और हाथ काटने की, तो एक रेजिस्टेंस जो है वो लॉयर कम्युनिटी और एक्टिविस्ट कम्युनिटी से आई थी. उसके बाद एक मॉनिटोरियम लगाया गया कुछ टाइम के लिए. फेडरल शरीयत कोर्ट ने कहा कि हम रीविजिट करेंगे इन पनिशमेंट्स को, और फिर उन्होंने थ्रेशोल्ड बढ़ा दिया. तो उसमें होता ये था कि एविडेंस का क्राइटेरिया ही नहीं पहुंच पाता था, तो हद के अंदर सजा नहीं हो पाती थी और वो ताजीर में कन्वर्ट हो जाता था. ये जो शुरू के 2-3 केसेस हैं, ये उस टाइम के केसेस हैं जब बिल्कुल नया नया हुदूद ऑर्डिनेंस आया था, एंड दे नीडेड to basically, I don't know, create an example out of it that this is very effective. और वो ये दिखाना चाहते थे, देखें ये हमने 2 किए हैं और 10 दिन तक कोई रेप नहीं सामने आया, तो ये कितना इफेक्टिव सजा है. तो ये वो 2 केसेस हैं. The second case is the one that you're talking about, if I'm not wrong. This is the Zarina Bibi case, which resulted into this huge backlash from the international community. And there were organizations who were helping a lot of government organizations at that time. They've said we will strike back our financial support to the government of Pakistan if they don't stop this atrocity against women, because this is barbaric. ये सजाएं कोई नहीं देता है दुनिया के अंदर. तो फिर उसके बाद जो है वो एक कोर्ट्स ने एक डिसीजन लिया कलेक्टिवली, और उन्होंने कहा कि हम ये सजा नहीं देंगे, we'll give an alternative punishment which was under ताज़ीर.
Thank you.
Online अहमर खान है, उन्होंने हाथ उठाया हुआ था. So if you can turn on your mic and.
Thank you so much, Farah, for such an informative session. I'm Amar. By profession, I'm a career counselor. I have done MS in career counseling. Right now, I'm pursuing a PhD in vocational psychology, and I happened to work with juveniles back in 2013 in Central Juvenile Jail, Karachi. It was an organization, women Islamic lawyers who were working on bailing individuals, and they were coming back, and it was a sort of rehabilitation program for them. Right now, my question is that isn't there any professional qualification available from any institution in Pakistan who are like offering law degrees for judges who are dealing with juveniles. For example, there are professionals right now sitting from medical, and I'm from counseling. So we know there are organizations who work as a regulatory body, and you cannot practice psychology and like even counseling, career counseling, and like medical practices. We have specialized like a specialization in peds and other specializations. So isn't there any specialization or professional qualification available in Pakistan or any other area of the world where you cannot deal, or a judge cannot take the course of a child if he's not qualified enough?
There is no specialized degree for it, unfortunately. The judges have to do their LLB, which is the grad degree for law. And then there is Sindh Judicial Academy and provincial judicial academies in other provinces. They are supposed to monitor the performances of each judges, and they are the ones who are supposed to give trainings and different skill-based training programs if judges are appointed for a special jurisdiction, to make sure that they understand the technicalities of that particular jurisdiction. So they are not provided any specific degree program. However, there are different training sessions which are being provided by the Sindh Judicial Academy to make sure that the judges are up to date about the law and they have the right skills to deal with the cases of juveniles.
Thank you so much, Ms. Farah. I think we have moved beyond the time we usually finish at 5, but there's बहुत सवाल हैं, बहुत discussion points हैं, but we have to unfortunately end. बहुत शुक्रिया आपका इतना important point पर. Thank you so much. And thank you
Thank
so
you for
much
the
all
online
participants here and online जिन्होंने join किया and contributed to the discussion. Thank you so much.